Welcome, everybody, to another fun-filled episode of Ramblin' Men, and today we're going to ramble about Star Wars.
All right, guys. So, we've talked about before, Star Wars, and it's such a large, universe, but we're going to kind of cut it down a little bit. We're going to talk about a particular area, and that is more recent, and that is the Book of Boba Fett kind of mixed with the Mandalorian. So, hopefully by now you have seen the Book of Boba Fett. I know, Josh, you said you just kind of finished watching the season recently. It's
Yep.
been about a month and some change for me. I finished up right after the season ended. Um, what were your thoughts on that?
So, Star Wars meets Godfather is kind of how I saw the series. If the Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 were more, Gunslinger, Wild Wild West, this was more of like Star Wars meets The Godfather.
I like that
And
comparison.
I honestly I loved it. Um, the biggest thing that I heard before I watched it was everybody's like, "Well, they never really leave Tatooine," and to that I say, why would you leave? You need a home base. You need to
Yep.
solidify, your base of operations. You need a place to work from that you feel secure in. So, from Boba Fett's standpoint, especially coming out of the Sarlacc and essentially going through that crucible moment with the Tuscans, um, he's vested. He's invested. You can tell
I,
that from the first 3 episodes.
and I will say this: I thought it was really interesting because at the end of Return of the Jedi, when he goes into the Sarlacc, what 1,000 years to digest or some ungodly amount of time it
Yeah,
takes your body. I thought it was interesting how they wrote that, bring him back, because I didn't, that no one gets out of the Sarlacc. I mean, that we know of. So I thought that was interesting how they kind of brought him back out of it the way they did. Um, and then to your point about kind of that crucible through with the Tusken Raiders and how he befriends and cares about them because they take him in after he tries to, escape and, kill that weird dog thing that they have.
yeah,
Obviously it was a chance, encounter, a moment when whatever the hell that thing was that came out of the sand, and he essentially kills it, and like the child Tusken Raider, lets the tribal members know. I think that was pretty cool how it put humanity to him, where before you wouldn't have had that. Right before he was just the masked guy who was a bounty hunter who went through, you know, killing people or completing contracts. And just to point out, I thought it's been really interesting between Boba Fett, the Mandalorian, and even we're not going to talk about it today because it just started, the Halo series. I honestly, the amount of masked characters that are coming out that are well-known characters, beloved characters, it's pretty cool.
yeah.
Now, I know you haven't watched the Halo yet. I watched the first episode the other day when it came out, so we won't go into it too much. But I really thought the way they did that was really good. I mean, the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, I thought the way the story was. I know some people complain. I I like the stories. I thought that the progression was good. I think the Book of Boba Fett, I like how they tied in the Mandalorian to it. And we'll talk about it some more, but the Mandalorian like 2.2 that comes in later in the season. No, try not to do spoilers, but hopefully by now you've seen it. If you haven't, maybe stay away from listening to kind of what goes on in this episode, so we don't want to give anything away. But
Yeah.
you know
Spoilers to our
yeah,
viewers. Really,
yeah,
we just said we're talking about the Book of Boba Fett,
yeah,
so you've been warned
yeah,
already.
just stay away if you don't if you happen to leave, like and subscribe. But we don't want to spoil anything for anybody that maybe has not seen it yet. And, realistically speaking, my only worry was in talking to people that I'm friends with, that, I work with, who watch these shows as well. If you haven't watched the Book of Boba Fett going into season 3 of The Mandalorian, I'm not going to say you're going to be lost, but you're going to be asking questions that were answered that you have no clue they were answered. Like, it's about Boba Fett. Why the hell is the Mandalorian involved in the Book of Boba Fett? But watch the Book of Boba Fett, and you'll understand that. So
And
come season
watch the
3, good.
watch the Mandalorian, so you
Yeah,
understand he's
they're
honor he's
they're
honor bound
intertwined.
to help. Yeah, he's honor bound to help Boba Fett.
Yeah,
He is.
and
It's hands
I
down.
really thought that was good, because I didn't anticipate that. Right, when you watch the Book of Boba Fett, you just feel that it's its own series, standalone kind of way. I mean, I'm anxious to see when Obi-Wan comes out, how that's going to be set up. Is it going to be a standalone? Is it going to be intertwined with something else? And I really thought, as the season progressed, and it really wasn't until probably halfway through, maybe the 6th episode or so, where you start seeing that, connection between the Mandalorian and Boba Fett. And I thought that was actually really good writing. I thought the directing was good in that sense, and I liked how they tied everything together.
Yeah, I think. See, that's the thing. David Filoni.
Oh,
It,
I love Dave Filoni.
he's he there. See, they for the life of me, David Filoni. Who's the other guy?
Talking about Jon Favreau.
Yeah, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni. They read Legends. Okay, just
Yeah,
like I read every single Legends book. All right, so you're talking to a full-fledged Star Wars, drank the Kool-Aid, and then
still
went back
around.
for still went back for seconds
Seconds,
because
thirds.
I just
Still
drank
like
the powder. I just drank
the
the
whole
powder.
thing.
I
Yeah.
don't need the water anymore. But my point is they're taking their keys from the books. So if you read the Star Wars books, even from you know X-wing to New Jedi Order to Young Jedi Knights to the Young Jedi series, for teenagers with Obi-Wan and the Jedi Temple, they are interconnected. They do connect to each other. That is exactly what they're doing in TV format because they're not trying to Disneyfy, and I'm going to use that. By the way, trademark term of Rambling,
Yeah.
man. They're,
Hashtag Disneyfy.
yeah, they're saying Disney can do whatever the hell they want, but this is Star Wars. We saw what Disney tried to do.
Yeah.
They screwed it. They screwed
Yeah.
it up. Let's admit that. As much as you might like the individual new trilogy, it's not interconnected. It does not feel like a living continuum. But these
Now,
series do.
to be fair, you wonder too at time, right? When Phantom Menace came out, in that second trilogy, you were so starved for new Star Wars content, because obviously late 90s when it starts, you hadn't had really anything. I know there's some animated stuff, but there wasn't a lot going on like we have today, right? Between having
No,
the Clone Wars animated movie, the animated show, Rebels, a
you
couple
had to
other
pick.
ones that are going on.
You had to go to Barnes and Noble and pick a book up.
Exactly. So I mean, there's other stuff now that ties things in. So
Yep.
that makes it easier. So you wonder too, when you go back and look at that second trilogy, the first 3 movies, um, I don't know. It was such a tough part because you wanted something, and George Lucas is directing, so you're just like, okay, this is gonna be just like the original 3, and obviously the original 3 were super hyped because they were great films. But I feel most people, when they first came out, the first 3, or at least the first 3, the second trilogy, were such a letdown at the time. As time has gone on, I would say that
People
I
love
have
them
grown.
now.
Yeah, I mean, I
People
don't
love
have
them
anything
now.
against Jar Jar Binks. I mean, he's a lovable, goob, but I, y- those movies over the last 20 something years, well, almost 20, depending on when you start that, 99 or whenever it came out, I think in 99. Over time, you have gone, okay, you know what? I really do like those. I mean, yes, it has moments. I mean, every movie has moments, but that second trilogy is starting to, I think, kind of pick up steam and come around to the original set. I don't know if in 20 years the third trilogy is going to get to that point,
No.
because you have different characters. I mean, I know Leia's in there, and there's some similarities. Han, Chewie, I get that, but at the same time, they're meant to be different. The next generation of that universe. That I don't know if it'll have the same impact down the line the way the second trilogy did. Just because that was the prequel to everything, it sets everything up, and this kind of finishes. But when you look at the standalone movies, right? Rogue One, I thought Rogue One was actually a really good movie.
Oh, it was
Um,
fantastic.
I know people kind of crapped on the Solo, and one off. I liked it. I
Hey,
think for the
hey,
movie
you know
itself, it's
what?
fun to
That's
watch.
turned around too, though. That's
Yeah,
turned around too. People actually they have they I don't know if it's still out there, but they had a signature going around on the web to have a sequel.
I
Like,
liked it, but the people they put in there, I liked it. Just like when you watch Rogue One, you knew in Rogue One what was going to happen. Once you if you didn't already know what was happening in the sense of the story, once they kind of progressed, you already knew the outcome.
yeah,
But you
yeah,
still
yeah.
were like, maybe they'll live.
Right.
It's not like you're like, well, it wasn't a foregone conclusion in the sense of even though you knew it, it wasn't a surprise. It was like, wow, that happened, but the way they tied that in at the very end. I mean, there's videos out there. I know there's the one of the probably 20-something-year-old woman who, at the very end, when she's watching, I think her boyfriend or husband's filming her, and you see that message get through, and it gets to the Corellian Corvette,
And
and there's
she's
Leia, right? She
bawling.
loses her mind and balls, right?
Yeah.
You knew it was coming, but the way they tied it in, you
Oh
didn't,
yeah.
and that I thought was great. Going back to the last three, it doesn't have that. It just
So
doesn't have
so
that.
so we're talking about the interconnectedness.
Yep.
So let's say for us, for me and you right now, we're 30 somethings.
Yep.
So when Leia says, "Help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope," you know, that brings on a whole new gravity with Rogue
Yes.
One. Because damn, she needed it.
Yeah.
Like
It wasn't like it
it's
was
an
a lie. I mean, she
yeah,
was, but again, it was interesting because obviously, I mean, in a perfect world, which obviously is not true because when George did the first one, you never knew what was going to come of, the series. He didn't know what that was going to happen. Dave Filoni and the other people that helped write those brought it back around to go, hey, we have a perfect opportunity to tie these movies together to put more depth to what was written in the script and create it's like a mind just blown because now you're like, wow, it's almost like a perfect setup 40 something years later, and it has so much depth to it that you didn't realize it before, and then you go back and watch the originals, you're like, holy crap. It's the way they tie it in. It might just because pure coincidence and pure luck with the writing that worked out that way, and they saw opportunity. But then credit to the writers to exploit the opportunity, not
right,
just let it
right.
go. And because anyone who watches movies, to your point, you go, wow, it almost seems like it was perfectly set up 40 something years later for the original New Hope to tie that in perfectly. And it just blows your mind.
Well, see, another mind-blowing part, and this is deep geekness going back to the book of Boba Fett. So the thing that I'm the only one that like, so I was sitting next to my wife who is not is now a Star Wars nerd, but it's because of me. That's my fault.
Yeah,
Uh,
props.
yep, that's right.
Yeah.
But when they said, "Oh, it's the Pike Syndicate," I lost my mind. I was like, "The
Yeah.
Pikes? Red
But
Red Stand? Are we talking about Pikes and Red Stand? Is this spice? Are we
that,
doing
that's
this shit?"
that's what
And
I
it
thought.
happened. Oh, it's so great.
I was pumped because having been a fan of some of the later animated shows, especially really liked Rebels. I didn't think I would like it, but the Clone Wars. They talk about obviously the Pike Syndicate in the Clone Wars animated show, and I'm like, oh, are those weird like fish looking dudes? Like, I know they're fish looking, but they got they're weird looking. They had the
Mhm,
cool helmets and everything,
mhm.
and all I thought was spice. Boom, we're talking about you talk about The Godfather. We're talking about the black market, basically mafia gangs, and I was pumped because you just like in the animated series, the Pikes basically run unobstructed from
Yeah.
everything. No one touches them
Nope.
because the money they provide, the stature they have, no one stops the Pikes. And it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're Timmy the Elephant in the middle of nowhere on Tatooine, you're not going to stop the Pikes, but yet he stands up to them.
Mhm.
And, it's those small things that I think bring the writing really brings it around for the people who are fans who have watched a lot, who have read a lot, even played the games. It really brings more depth to an already deep universe. And I think one of the things that has been very difficult for huge fans, really, fans who live and breathe Star Wars, has been the eradication of what was canon before Disney.
Absolutely.
And it's nice to see when you still have people who were around before Disney bought, Filoni, and is still going around and tying things back to what was before Disney and what was after Disney, and still making sure that, hey guys, I know we had to maybe tread lightly, or he's pushing the boundaries a little bit, but he's still tying stuff in to, like, if you, oh, there it is, I see it there's the, that's what I really appreciate that about Dave, and how him and the writers really work hard to bring back some of the stuff that maybe has been written off since
Mhm.
the Disney purchase of Star Wars.
Mhm. I agree, and I like the whole uh, local politics of Tatooine with the
Yep.
different gangsters and all that stuff. I just think that it was very well done. To cap off this segment of our video, I just really Book of Boba Fett hit it out of the park.
Yep.
Um,
Especially for in and I can never remember the actor's name. Obviously, I know his face, but I can't remember the guy who played Boba Fett. He played him in the movies, obviously. Well, this, Attack of the Clones and those. But for a guy who obviously is a little older, can't do as many of the moves he might have been able to do 20 years ago. I thought he still did a great job. I thought the acting was still good. The writing was good. It wasn't really too slow. I thought it did a pretty good job of keeping pace. Obviously, bringing in um, the touches of the Mandalorian into the show late in the season, so you can get him back in with that oath to Boba Fett. The very end when all looks lost, and then our little green buddy Grogu comes, to save the day essentially.
mhm.
You know, I thought that was interesting. I thought that was really good. It sets up perfectly for season 3 of The Mandalorian, and I'm anxious to see with season 2 of Boba Fett. If I have not seen. Did they already greenlight that for a second season?
I can't see how they can't have one.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, it was too big. Now the question is, what do you do? Right? I mean,
oh, what do you
he's
do?
essential. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I think he can do, but do you stay on Tatooine? Does he kind of develop
Well,
his base now?
well, you got to remember, Cobb comes back because he
That's
was
true.
in. He comes back. There's that little nugget where, because I love Cobb, honestly. If you were to ask me between, like, who am I, right? Like, who am I morally? Who am I from a standpoint of, like, what would I be in the universe? I would like to say that I'm a Mandalorian, but I don't physically. They would not let me. Uh, they'd be like, "Ah,
You're the
go
Mandalorian they throw up first. Like, yeah,
go
that's yeah.
polish the weapons, Josh." That's what the that's
He
that's what I'd
can.
do.
The,
Um,
the, your whole job would be in the corner. This is the way. That would be like you.
yeah,
This is the way, guy. Okay, we're good. We're good.
yeah. Hey, I oiled your blaster. It's shiny now.
Thanks, buddy.
but, but no, I mean, you know, you got Marshall Cobb, which, by the way, that is actually a callback to Firefly, Jane Cobb. Just for those of you that truly want to geek out. Um, It's a little bit of an inside joke there, but I think this is a great video for the Bubba Fett. And guys, we're gonna do our next rambling session here in a bit, so stay tuned.
Thanks, guys.